Well, that's just not very Christ-like. Greetings, I'm JC Pilcher, and this is JCPC Apologetics. Well, hello and welcome to another Monday and another episode of Bad Arguments. Today we're going to deal with another one of the popular Christian bad arguments made out there. Whenever you attack a holy cow, whenever you attack a false teacher or any sort of precious sin that a person happens to have, they draw upon this argument. And that argument is, well, that's not very Christ-like.
What's wrong with you people?
So this is a very simple and a very basic one. It doesn't require a lot of detail to go into it, and that is simply because the answer is no. It's very similar to one that we did recently, and that's not very loving. We got to be very clear. Certainly, we don't want to fall into the camp of being unloving and unchrist-like, right? That is a very legitimate concern. There are the Steven Andersons out there. There are the IFB types out there who they point out error because they seem to enjoy beating people down. But that is kind of an exception, not the rule. When I hear people say that's not very Christ-like, more often than not, it's a person who's being very Christ-like who's being called that. We've got to bear in mind, that you take John the Baptist. He called the Pharisees a brood of vipers. You take Jesus himself, the one who is the most Christ-like person out there. He called the Pharisees whitewashed sepulchres. He called them hypocrites. He called them a whole number of different names that were, let's just say, if we said today, people would call us unchrist-like for saying. Now, I'm not recommending that you go out there and you call people names. There is a time to call people hypocrites. There is a time to call, call people things like that. But what I'm saying is, most of the time, when you hear a person make the argument that that's not very Christ-like, the fact is, it's usually something that's really, really mild. When a person uses that argument with you, my recommendation is basically to respond, what's that have to do with the price of tea in China? Because either the argument is right or it's wrong. Whether you were Christ-like in the way you said it, that's a different subject we can deal with after the debate or the discussion or the whatever we're going through is dealt with. The diversion tactic, trying to change the subject to your tone, to not being Christ-like or whatever, that's usually something someone resorts to when they've lost an argument. They don't have anything else to say to defend their position. And so what they're going to do is try to turn the tables on you and try to make you look like a bad person. It's kind of another ad hominem type argument. And first of all, as Christians, we don't need to engage in that. If someone is rebuking us in a unchrist-like manner, let's just say that is an actual thing. Say you're on the receiving end of a guy who's just very vitriolic and very... and first of all, we got to learn to toughen up a little bit, because most people take any sort of rebuke as being unchrist-like and as being full of hate and rage and all that. And a person can be just talking as calm as, you could ever ask somebody to rebuke you. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, somebody is, addressing a sin, whether it is an actual sin or not in your life, or rebuking a false teacher, whether that person is or is not a false teacher, and you feel like the guy is being very vitriolic and very angry, and in a unrighteous sort of anger, because there is such a thing. When that happens, my recommendation is you finish the discussion. you'd finish the discussion, and then after it's over and it's said and it's done, then you can address the tone and the unChristlikeness of his defense. But when you jump to, that's not Christlike, all you're doing really is changing the subject, and it's kind of trying to turn the tables to where you're no longer under the gun, but under the microscope, but they are now. And that's just not really a good way to arrive at any sort of agreement, or even mutual, agreed upon disagreement, right? Agree to disagree, as they say. I get really annoyed, and I'm getting kind of tired of Christians who are not like the apostles. They're not like Jesus. Jesus went out and he went into the apostles, they went into the most, how do we put it? The most hostile areas of the world, and they didn't sugarcoat things. They got called names, they got attacked, and they didn't say, well, that's not very godly, that's not very Christ-like when they were attacked. Even when it was by people who claimed to be Christians, they argued the points. They continued, they stuck to the mission, they stuck to the message. That's the way we ought to be. We need to stick to it. And if a person is a genuine believer, yeah, then you can deal with them about their tone. But let's deal with one thing at a time rather than just shotgun blasting objections everywhere. Truth is, Jesus and the apostles were very, very harsh by our standards in the way that they dealt with people they disagreed with. There is a lot of room for discernment, I think, on that as believers, because everything should be done in love. But we see what Jesus, the perfect embodiment of love, how he dealt with people on that level. There's a lot of room for discernment on that. And just because you might be a more tender, soft person doesn't mean that a person who is blunt and to the point is unloving or unChristlike. Jesus was a very, I guess I should say is, because he still is, right? A very blunt person. A very to the point, and he didn't sugarcoat things. Also, we see that sometimes Jesus, his approach was different depending on the audience. So with that said, calling somebody you disagree with unChristlike, whether or it's true or not, it doesn't defend, it doesn't validate your position. All it does is kick the ball into another court so you can fight on a different level and make the thing, turn the tables on the other guy. It's bad argument, and if you want to deal with somebody's tone, deal with that in a different subject. With that said, we also need to learn to be a lot more patient, because the people who are the tone police, as I've heard them called, these guys are out of hand. The tone police have gotten to the point where the only correct tone is acceptance and tolerance of whatever error is out there. You guys, you got to deal with the fact that as Christians, we are commanded to call out the false teachers. We are commanded to call out false teaching. And if you don't like it, then I don't know what to tell you. You're too weak, for lack of better words. You need to grow up. Christianity is not a baby religion. You got to be an adult to engage in the realm of Christianity. I'm sorry. And that's where a lot of our problems stem from, I think, in the U.S., is that we have a generation, my generation especially, the millennials. They're all children. They might be adults. They might have grown bodies, but mentally, or not mentally even, some of them are very bright people. Emotionally, though, they are children. They can't handle being disagreed with. That is sin. And if anybody disagrees with you and the first thing you want to do is attack that person, the error is on your part. They might have some error themselves, but you might want to remove that log out of your eye before you deal with the speck in the other person's. So I hope that was helpful to you guys. Regardless of whether a guy is being Christ-like or not, deal with the subject at hand first, and then we can go on to other things. Now, with that said, if you've come to this channel and you're an unbeliever and you just happen to stumble on this video for whatever reason, certainly it's probably not for using that argument, but hey, there is something in this video for you. And that is, I'm going to leave linked after this video is over, a message, a short little video that I made called What is the Gospel? And I'm going to link it at the not the description, but the little, after part where it shows the different thumbnails that you can click on. Click on to that thing, and it will show you what we as Christians believe when we talk about the gospel. If you are a believer, if you're one of those people that at the drop of a hat, you're willing to drop that, that's not very loving, that's not very Christ-like sort of argument, I recommend you check that out too. Maybe it is that you are not saved. Maybe you are culturally Christian, but you just don't really understand the gospel. You've never actually been converted. That is something you definitely have to consider. Christianity has high standards, and many of you resort to the Christ-like argument because you're not a believer. You reject the standards of Christianity, but you also want to go to church. And so, yeah, if that's you, definitely check out this video. It might be the thing you need to hear. With that said, God bless. Have a great day.
What's wrong with you people? I'm serious.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below and feel free to like and share it so others can see it as well. Also, subscribe so that you can keep up to date on future videos. And as always, please check below to see resources that I've used that might help you to further your studies. God bless and have a great day.